Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining my talk. We're going to talk about from phishing to account takeover. That's going to be a very deeply technical presentation, so you should follow all the steps. I'm also going to share two new red team tools that we've built at Proofpoint. And actually, that's the first time we ever share those tools with the public. That's going to be pretty interesting. So I'm claiming that it's pretty simple to hack an account, a cloud account, like an Azure account or an Amazon account or any other email account. But it's relatively hard to maintain persistence of those accounts. So to hack an account, that's one thing, but to keep using that account without being blocked or removed or prevented from continuing to use that, that's a whole different thing. A little bit about myself. I have about 20 years of experience with both offensive and defensive in cyber. I'm working as the manager of the cloud threat research at Proofpoint. Obviously, you can meet me later on at our booth or table outside. I have a lot of cyber certificates. I'm not going to go through all of them. And let's get into the interesting stuff. So our agenda, it's going to be an interesting flow, starting from a very short explanation about phishing, because I kind of assume that most of you knows how phishing goes. And then we're going to go to how to maintain your account and like a full explanation on account takeover, what hackers are actually doing for account takeover. And obviously we're going to review the tools that we are publishing here. So the first step of phishing. So that's a screenshot from EvilJinx. That's one of the interesting reverse proxy phishing tools. Obviously, there's a lot of other ones like Tycoon or Evil Proxy. And for those who doesn't really familiar with phishing, what we're seeing here is the control panel of that phishing kit. And there's actually a list of fishlets on the left side. And those are the templates that are using to phish certain users. So if you want to phish someone for his LinkedIn account, you're going to need to use one fishlet. If you want to use someone O365 account, you're going to use a different fishlet. So you need to pick the relevant fishlet. Now, as I assume most of you are familiar with that, I'm going to skip the general explanation about how the process of using the fishlets and phishing is actually happening. And I'm going to go to something called FIDO. Now, FIDO is a new standard to secure your accounts, because most people that are not using FIDO will probably use an MFA, multi-factor authenticator, which means that when you're logging into your cloud account, and doesn't matter which cloud account, you're probably going to be challenged by an SMS or maybe something that will send through your Microsoft Authenticator, and then you need to punch in like 6 or 5 digits. So the industry came up with something called FIDO, which is a new standard, and you need to have a physical token to log into your account. That's an example for a YubiKey. I'm not going to explain the process of how FIDO works, but that's the kind of most recommended way to log into your accounts with an MFA. So I was thinking, let's try to phish a user that is using FIDO, which is the most secured way as far as we know for now. And I tried to use a general Microsoft O365 fishlet. And I got this error that says that, it's not going to work. I will not be able to steal their credentials. I will not be able to get a copy of their session cookie. And then I thought, well, it's probably going to be pretty complex to bypass FIDO. But what if I could downgrade FIDO and force you to use a simpler method that I could phish? So what I did, I've built a fishlet that actually forces the user to downgrade into another MFA method. And with those other MFA methods, either if it's an SMS or a token is being sent to you or something through like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticators, those could be easily harvested by people that are using fishlets. So what we can see here in those three steps On the top left, you can see that my fishlet, so that's the response from a Microsoft account when trying to log in with my fishlet. It says we could sign you in. So that's the first step of me forcing the user not to use FIDO. The second step is I'm actually asking you to pick a different method to authenticate. And that's really from Microsoft. So that's not phishing. That's Microsoft through my fishlet. And then the third option, you can see that the user in this case, obviously that's me because I kind of did those screenshots for that presentation, but if I would use it on a victim, that's what he or she would do, needs to use their authenticator and punch in those numbers. And that's phishable. So we can see here that I'm using a fishlet that I called O365 FIDO bypass. It should have been FIDO downgrade. I thought to bypass FIDO in the beginning, but I decided to downgrade it. But anyway, that's the fishlet. And I'm apologies on all of the masking, right? I was using real users on real infrastructure to prove that it's real and not just like in a demo lab or something. So I had to mask a lot of things. So we can see that the username, Pat something, was actually captured. So I have their password and then I have their token that you can see here. Again, mostly masked under the cookies part. So what I've proved with that fishlet is that even if you're using the most secure method, which is FIDO at the moment, and you're using a token, yes, you can bypass it, you can downgrade it. So at the end of the day, when a hacker wants to compromise an account, they don't really care how they do it as long as they get what they need. And what they need is the session cookie. And in this case, we ignored FIDO and we got the session cookie. Now I was using that session cookie in my browser just to show that I can actually log in with that session cookie. And you can see that I'm logged in. So that's game over from the user, even though that user is using FIDO. Now, the way to prevent everything that I did here is to force the user to use FIDO and FIDO only. Because my trick, the dirty trick that I've used, is to downgrade into a simpler method. But if that user doesn't have a simpler method like Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, SMS, getting the code by SMS, that thing will not work. So that will only work if you have another method. And guess what? 99.9% of people or users have a backup method, because what happens if they're going to lose their token? They will not be able to log into their account. So there's always a backup method. And therefore, I would claim that what I did here will probably work 99+% of the time. There's a full blog that I've published on that thing. You know, you can see the steps there and a lot of screenshots. So you can feel free to go to the Proofpoint blog and just search for FIDO or for my name. You're going to see the full blog for that. So again, I didn't want to talk about a lot of how to hack accounts because was probably discussed by a lot of other presenters. I want to talk about post-exploitation now. So once I've hacked an account, what do I do to maintain persistence in that account so I could keep using that for years? So we've wrote a tool at Proofpoint called ATOLS, which is Account Takeover Live Simulation. And it's the first step that I would do as an attacker after compromising an account. And the main focus of that tool is to connect itself with a reverse proxy like EvilJinx or Tycoon or Evil Proxy, whatever. Take that token and use that token to execute certain things that will kind of give me a foothold within the account. So that's the tool. There are two versions. I'm not going to take you through the two versions. I'm going to take you through version 2, which is the more advanced one. And what happens in that tool, and I know that it's a lot, and you're not seeing that clear, but try to follow the blue arrows that I have. So when you're running that tool, that's, by the way, a PowerShell tool. When you're running that tool, it's going to ask you, please enter the email you would like to test. And again, we're at Proofpoint, we're defending from attackers, right? So we're not going to say, please enter the email that you would like to hack or to have like post-exploit or whatever. We're testing things, right? We're just testing. But those are real accounts. Anyway, once you punch in the email that you want to test, that's going to fetch some information on that specific Azure account that email is related to, about the tenant that email is related to. The next step that it's going to do, it's going to run through different steps and try to generate a token from that account, because I need a token to authenticate to do certain things. And remember, we're post-exploitation here, so we're already within that victim's account. Once I have that token, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in through different methods. Again, some of them are masked here. So I will be able to see the current mail rules, the mail rules of that account. So as you probably know, there is a way to add mail rules to every email account, and those mail rules will execute certain things based on their definition. Now, any of you this morning, and I assume all of you are top-notch security experts, any of you checked their mail rules this morning? Anyone? That's what I thought. Because nobody's doing that, right? Nobody's waking up in the morning and checking their mail rules to see if an attacker added a mail rule to their email. It's just, nobody's doing that. So, I'm checking what's the current mail rules on that specific account. Obviously, they're empty. There's no mail rules in that specific account. And just to clarify, mail rules are rules that could say, if you've got an email from address ABCD, or if you've got an email from IT, put it in that folder. Or if you've got an email that has the word, financial, put it in another folder. So those are mail rules that helps you manage your mails automatically. So we saw that there are no mail rules within that specific account, obviously because I created that account, so I know. And what I can see here through the process is that I'm asking ATOLS, which is that post-exploitation tool, to generate a new mail rule. Now, as you can see, in that specific version, you can pick two versions. That's going to be the third arrow that says either delete emails or flag emails as high. Now, I added flag emails as high just as a test. No attacker will flag your emails as high. It doesn't really help them, right? They might have the rule of deleting something. So once your account was hacked, maybe someone from IT or from the SOC team will send you an email, your account was hacked. So what attackers will do, they're going to delete emails that contains the word attack, hacked, change your password. So they're going to go through those phrases, and they're going to delete those emails that contains those phrases. So adding a delete mail rule is very important. You could probably see on the second arrow that I'm picking between regular mail rule and bypass mail rule. So while I was playing, with different mail rules and in different environments, I kind of find a way to bypass certain restrictions on certain environments. I'm not going to go into that because that's not the focus of our presentation, but that's why you have just adding a rule or a bypass method. So just taking us through the steps, we have an account that was probably using FIDO, which is the most secure way. We've downgraded FIDO. We've hacked that account. Now we're adding mail rules that will delete any mail that comes from the SOC team or IT team. And then you can add a lot of other rules. Like, for example, you can add rules that says if the email subject contains financial or bank account or anything like that, send a copy to my private email address. So the attacker will be there, monitoring your emails without doing anything manually, getting copy of your important emails, and deleting emails that they don't want you to see. So those are the two important things that you can do here. Now, anyone could tell me what's the name of the rule, right? When you're creating a mail rule, you need to give a name to that rule. What's the rule name? Anyone could see that? No. So the rule name is a dot. Just a dot. So what we saw at Proofpoint is that attackers likes to use dots as rule names. So when you go through your rule, once you're done with that presentation, I'm sure all of you are going to check their mail rules. So if you're going to see a mail rule called a dot, or like dot, or like pizza, those are probably attackers within your account harvesting your emails. So the funny thing is that from what we saw, attackers will not use smart names in their rules. If I would add a rule, I would probably say, like IT emails or like financial emails or something that makes sense, but they're too lazy. And anyone could explain to me how come the attackers are too lazy, that they allow themselves to use a dot as the name rule. Anyone has a thought about it? Raise your hand. Yeah, over there? Exactly, because it works. So it works because nobody's monitoring that. So probably some of you are infected, they're controlling your email, but nobody is checking that. It works for them, so they just continue to being lazy. So what we're seeing here is that once the rule was added, so I've added a rule here that says delete certain emails. The name of the rule is a dot. And then you can see that that's the rule that I've added. On the second arrow, the name is dot. And on the third arrow here, you can see the description of the rule. And again, in here, I just for test, just because I took some screenshots for that presentation, I picked the one that says, every email should be in high importance, just to prove a point that I can control all the emails within that inbox. So you probably saw in the previous slide, it goes from phase 4 to phase 6. So phase 5 is missing. Phase 5 is another tool that I'm going to show you that is called FASSA. Now, before I'm continuing, I just wanted to show you how it looks like. That's in Microsoft 365. So if you're going to go to your email, in this case, again, it's Microsoft 365, and you're going to click on settings, you're going to go to mail, you're going to pick rules. You could see the rule that I've added, and you could probably see the rules that you have on your inbox. So I suggest you to go through that process once we're over with the presentation, just to validate what kind of rules you have. Now, the thing is that attackers are moving to automate things. So if in the past attackers would manually hack an account, and then they would manually add things, what I did here with ATOLS, again, just for testing purposes, don't use it, all the disclaimers, it's just for security research and all of that. But I would say, in theory, attackers could take that ATOLS tool and just run it on all of their compromised accounts instead of manually adding stuff. And I'm also offering you adding any mix of configurations to the email rules that you want. So you can add different mail rules. Those are pre-configured within the tool. So you just need to be able to run a PowerShell script, give that PowerShell script a list of accounts that you compromised, and you're going to be there for a while until they're going to check their email rules. So remember phase number 5 that was missing. That's the next step. So you've hacked an account, downgraded FIDO, ran ATOLS to have a mail rule within that, or mail rules, depends on you. And now you want to have a stronger persistence. So let's say that I've hacked an account, and now somebody notified the user that that account is hacked. What's the first thing that they're going to do once an account was hacked? Change their password, right? So that's what I would do. The thing is, there's a nice trick to keep a foothold within the account, even if they change their password. That's the trick of FASSA. That's another tool that I'm going to show you now. So first of all, just to explain in general, because we're going to need that to understand what the FASSA tool is doing. There's something called OAuth apps. Now, if you guys are familiar with that, fine. If you're not, just imagine that it's like an app that you can install on your phone. Like if you have an Android or an iPhone, you can install from the store an app. So you can do the same thing on a Microsoft tenant. You can just install an app. Let's say that I wanted a nicer calendar. Let's say that I wanted an app that helps me with finance or something. I can just install an app on the Microsoft account. Just a sec. Cool. So there are 3 types of apps in general, and I would say probably different vendors will call them different ways. We at Proofpoint like to split them into first-party apps, second-party apps, and third-party apps. So first-party apps, and again, if we're just talking about an Azure tenant, just for an example, those are going to be the apps that Microsoft built and are installed on that tenant. So those are like the original apps. I'm going to skip second party. Third party apps are just apps that someone built, and they're giving you the opportunity to either buy them or use them for free. So it's like installing, I don't know, WinRAR on your Windows computer. That's a third party app because that was not made by Microsoft, that made Windows, for example. Second party app is an area that a lot of vendors and a lot of SOC teams are actually kind of missing. So that's an app that someone within your tenant created. So not a first-party app that was created by Microsoft, not a third-party app that was created by some random person. Second-party app is someone within your organization. Now, if it happens to be that someone within your organization is a compromised account, we can use that. So the tool FASSA is Future Account Super Secret Access. And that's a name that I just invented because the thing is, FASSA is the other way around of the name Asaf. That's a name. And the guy that I was kind of working with, that was his name. And I told him, one day I'm going to build a tool. I'm going to put your name as the name of the tool. So I just used that name and invented the acronym. But anyway, the focus of the tool is to allow you to access an account that was compromised, even if they change their password. That's the cool thing of the account. I'm going to use a token, and I'm going to use a second-party app with a secret. Now, a secret is a secret that you can add to your apps. That's something that you can do in Azure. I'm not going to explain about how secrets and certificates are working. You can read about it anywhere. But I'm going to use the token, second-party app, and the secret to maintain access and foothold within a compromised account. So let's see how it works. So that's FASSA, and the first thing it's going to ask you if you're an admin or not. That's total BS. You don't need to be an admin. I just added some sort of a restriction for someone before they're actually running the tool. So that's the question, if you're an admin or not. It doesn't matter what you're answering. If you're answering why, that's fine. If you're answering anything else, it's not going to allow you to run the tool. But you don't have to be an admin. And when I'm saying an admin, that's an admin account within Azure, for example. So once we're running the tool and it actually logs into the compromised account, right, because we just compromised an account, that's going to show you some details about the tenant. And then it's going to go, after the login phase, to the app creation phase. Now, I know it's a lot to take, but bear with me. So that's the creation of a second-party app that is called, in this case, Just Some App. That's the blue arrow there. And again, you can pick any name that you like, but remember that Microsoft are actually monitoring the names of newly created apps. So if you're going to try to create an app that is called like Teams with like 2 E's, or like Office with like 2 O's or something, they might detect you and prevent you from creating that app. So you need to find like a proper name that doesn't stand up too much, but not too similar to a Microsoft app, because they're monitoring those kind of things. So that's the second party app that I'm creating as, from the compromised user. The next phase is we can see the app details. So there's a lot of details on that app. The ID of the app and different configurations. Again, hopefully I'm going to share that slide so you can use the same configurations that I'm using if you want to do it manually. Then once the app is created, we need to add scopes. Now, just to explain what scopes are, when you're creating an app, you need to allow the app certain things. Like, I'm allowing that app to read my emails. Or like an app on your phone will probably ask access to your contacts, for example, or to your camera. So those are scopes. So in Azure, what we're adding here are 2 scopes. And those 2 scopes would probably be mail read, because I want to keep reading your emails, and then offline access. But in theory, the more scopes you add to a second-party app that you create, the better, because then you have more access. So that's the phase. And you can see the scopes on the second blue arrow. It says scope, mail read, and offline access. And on the first blue arrow on the top, it says using the owner ID. Now, owner ID in this case is the unique identifier of the compromised account that you've hacked at Azure. And you can see it on the Azure control panel on their portal. So that's publicly available once you're part of the tenant. So once we created a second-party app, and that's I'm not sure if you can read that, but you kind of gonna have to believe me here if you can't read that. So I'm showing the process of adding a secret. On the top left, it says my cert, and it's just the name of the certificate that I wanted to give. That's the secret that I'm adding to the app. And then it says 2. So 2 means I'm adding it for 2 years. So you can limit certificates for an X amount of time. In this case, I'm adding the certificate for 2 years. So I would have access to that account for an entire 2 years. Now you can put like 15 or 35, but that's going to be strange for someone if anyone will monitor it to see 35 years for a secret. So 2, I think, is good enough. And then every like year and a half, you can refresh it and add another 2 years. But anyway, that's the process of me showing the tokens of the user, the compromised user. And the nice trick is that we need to create an authentication code. Again, I'm not going to explain about that because I kind of assume that you know that. And then we're going to go and change the password. So if you can see the first arrow, it says, please change the user's password and go to like My Sign-ins, Microsoft. So what I'm going to show you now is that I've showed you that I have access to the tokens. I'm going to change the password. And then through the second-party app, I would keep reading that user's emails, even though they changed their password. So I've added a hint here on the tool on how to kind of totally disconnect the user. So you can use that if you want. You're going to go connect mggraph and then revoke mguser sign-in session with the user ID. But just to show you, I'm going to change the password, obviously. Pick a new password. Password was changed. And then what I'm showing here is that even though the password was changed, I could still get the new tokens of the user. And the cool thing is that I'm reading, that's the emails of that user. So they changed their password. I've used the secret to actually keep reading their emails because remember, we have mail read on the scopes. And again, I didn't parse it nicely, so it doesn't look very nice, but that's the user's emails. You can see like the to and from and details of the emails. And then just another screenshot of another email. So that's the usage of FASSA. Even if you're changing your password, I'm going to still read your emails. Now, how it looks from the Azure side. So if you're defenders, you want to kind of protect the victim. You're going to go to app registration. You're going to look through the apps. On the left side, you're going to see a green V mark that says that there is like secrets and certificates. You're going to click on the app, and that's the exact app that I created with the FASSA run that I just showed you. And then you're going to go to certificates and secrets. And you can see here on the description, my cert 123, that's the cert that I added, expires in 2 years. I did it a few days ago, right, on the 1st of September. And if you're going to delete that specific line, I'm done. I'm out of your account. But if you're not going to do that, I'm going to keep reading your emails for the next 2 years. So those are 3 methods with 2 tools of post-exploitation. I just wanted to take you through the entire full flow of what I would do if I was an attacker. First phase is obviously enumeration, and there's a lot of enumeration tools publicly available that you can enumerate users on specific tenants. Then I would probably use EvilJinx or any other reverse proxy with the relevant fishlets. Again, you need to match the fishlet to the specific account that you want to hack. If you want to hack LinkedIn, you need to have a specific LinkedIn fishlet. If you want to have, you're going to have a Google account, it's going to need to be a Google fishlet. Obviously, I would use the FIDO downgrade fishlet that I've built because if someone is using FIDO, you'll not be able to hack their account. Then, for the third part of email, I would use ATOLS. That's the first tool that we saw, adding multiple email rules both to steal information and to delete information that goes to that user. Then I would use FASSA. That's the OAuth part. I would use FASSA to add the second-party app with secret just to have myself a 2 years foothold within that account. And then at the end, and there is another tool that I wrote for MFA, but I don't have enough time to show that today, but I wrote a tool that kind of adds your own phone number to all of the accounts as a backup method. So I could kind of restore password through that. So that's like the full flow of account takeover. Some takeaways. So, hackers will be hackers. I would say it's not very complicated to execute an account takeover. Obviously with those automatic tools, that I've built. Adversaries will go through to automation, and you should probably look through a post-exploitation. Thank you very much. That's my X if anyone wants to contact me.
Thank you very much, Yaniv, Miron. Does anybody want to ask a question right now? Quickly. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. If you've got time, I've got time.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, it works. The making the creation of the inbox rules. Defender XDR has some detections on suspicious mailbox manipulation rules. Have you tried running against that and see how it works out?
I'm not allowed to answer on a specific tool, but I would say a general statement that I haven't seen any tool that detected those email rules that I added at all from any vendor. Obviously, we can detect it, but it seems that a lot of vendors are actually ignoring that thing. And if they do detect, they might detect based on a list of names like dot, 2 dots. So I'm just going to create a rule named 3 dots, or I don't know, orange cone or whatever, and that's going to bypass most of the detections.
Okay. Is there any? Yeah, here.
Yes. Hello. Yeah. I was wondering if any old user can create such an OAuth application, or do you need special permissions for that?
So I would say it depends on the configurations of your tenant. Admins might restrict those creations, but from my tests, in most tenants, that's not restricted, even for an ordinary user that is not an admin or not part of the engineering or DevOps team.
In that case, if there are no questions anymore, 2 here.
No, unfortunately. Obviously, we're a cybersecurity vendor, so we're still thinking if we should release those tools or not, but that's kind of up to upper management of Proofpoint to decide. I would personally be happy to share that tool if I would be allowed to. But, you can ping me, and depends where you're working. Maybe, I can send you a copy. Yeah.
How common is it that users are able to register their own OAuth applications and enter? I thought normally they wouldn't be allowed to. So I don't know how common it is.
I would say it's pretty common that they are allowed to. They shouldn't be allowed to, but from my tests on a lot of tenants, they're allowed to. It's actually pretty rare that they're not allowed to. And again, it's misconfiguration from the owner of the tenant probably, but that's what you kind of see in your day-to-day.
Okay. Everybody, please give a big applause to Yaniv. He'll be walking around, so if you want to ask him more questions, you can definitely do that.